Hello, friends. Well, I am your host Eric, host of Talking with Famous People, and this is a live stream, the title of which is Needs, Wants, Desires, and Restraints. Every human being has some basic needs, obviously physical needs such as food, water, shelter, but for most of us, our needs fail to be met when we don't get our emotional needs met. That is to say, we need to feel wanted, included, important, valued, loved. Hello, Vainamoinen. What is the demon type? I don't know. What is the demon type? Is there a demon type? And yet here I find myself live streaming anyway. To be perfectly honest, I don't really think I need Adderall anymore. I still like it, though. I'll still do it, but I expect that I'll still manage to be fairly productive over the course of the next couple of weeks as I get the remaining bit of sleep deprivation driven Ericness out of my system and return to my normal sort of ADHD self. I suspect that circumstances being what they are, I'll still manage to do a fair amount of stuff. So, in some sense, what that means is all my needs are being met, and I'm able to focus on wants and desires. Now, there's a difference between wants and desires. Wants being sort of permanent desires, and desires being momentary urges. Hi, Eileen. Hi, Freddie Chandran. Well, like right now, I desire to smoke this bong rip. Do I want to smoke this bong rip? Yeah, I guess, whatever. But it's not a want. Like, I don't want to be somebody who smokes weed all day. Not that I want to not be somebody who smokes weed all day, but it's not linked to my identity at all. It's not something that I would like to see an area of self growth either way. Hi, April. So I guess what I'm getting at there is I fulfill this desire. What I want to do really is to not have to challenge this fulfillment of desire and exercise discipline. So if you want to talk about what I want when I'm smoking this bong rip, is to not have to exercise self-discipline. Do I have any experience with getting less enjoyment out of weed? Sometimes I don't really feel like pulling bong rips or whatever. It depends upon circumstances again. If I am not really out and about at all, and I'm smoking bong rips all day, it gets a little tiresome. But if I've been out for a while and haven't smoked weed for 4 or 5 hours or something, I come home, it's quite satisfying. I need to stay up to study tonight, says Freddie Chandran. You should do some amphetamines. Wants are SI, desires SE and NE. Possibly it's a good distinction to make there. But I would say, you could add in there wants or NI. You know what you want, NI or SI. You feel what you desire, or you're driven by a desire. I see desire as long-term and wants with the near future, strategy versus tactics. Okay, well, I don't know what other words to use besides desire to include things such as lust, right? I may desire to get on some chick, but that doesn't mean I necessarily should, or that I necessarily want to, right? Like walking down the street, I may see some hot chick and desire to hump her, but that doesn't mean I actually want to hump her. Hi, Rita Sousa. How you doing? How's Portugal treating you? Speaking some Portuguese? Going yaggity, 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 yaggity. That's how you speak Portuguese. It's just like Spanish, but with more yaggities in it. So it's this for me, live streaming comprises a want and a desire. I'm God, says Sousa. Oh, you're good, you mean? Okay. Well, I'm glad you're good. I hope you mean you're morally good. Tentatively, I don't think that wants or desires are FI. Really, I perceive desires to be instant gratification, while SE or NE, while SI or NI seem to frame long-term intent, perhaps. I mean, I do think desire can correlate with FI, such as you might fall in love with somebody and desire to be with them all the time. But I mean, in general, I would agree that desires are more indulgent than feelings. Portuguese is more like bicho, bicho, hey, fala. Like that. Are you never afraid of wanting the wrong thing? I'm not sophisticated enough in my FI in that regard. So I think that that's something that FI users worry about. I probably should worry about it. I figure in most circumstances, I'll not use my feelings anyway. When I I'm afraid of desiring the wrong thing. I don't trust my desires very much. Like, sometimes I can let my desires fool me into thinking that they're wants. Portuguese sounds like a Polish person speaking Italian. Huh. So an Italian failing to screw in a light bulb? So I choose to not want anything at all. Thank you for the answer, Eric. I don't think you can do that, Eileen. I don't think you can not want anything at all. That's the same thing as being a Buddhist, and that's a wrong path. I conceptualize FI as the character assessing function. The user creates a system of positive moral obligations that then impose upon themselves and assess the intentions and motivations behind other people. I don't know what I want, says Joey Jojo Shabadoo. I frequently wish I wanted something. Look, I think that to be happy and healthy in life, you have to want self-growth. And the rest of the things will take care of themselves. Self-growth will lead you where it's going to lead you. If it's genuinely self-growth and not self-devolution, then you'll end up in the right place. There are words and actions, and those of others as well, which is why it's good at determining the character and integrity of a person. Wanting self-growth doesn't necessarily correlate with wanting ambitious outcomes or material goods or anything like that. But, I think ultimately it seeks meta-rationalism, which is, for the rationalist, some sort of inclusion of the magical. For the magicalist, some sort of inclusion of the rational. I think to a certain extent, Freddie Chandran, you're mistaking your ignoring FE for FI. I too feel as though I can read a person if they're up to anything shady right away. I can tell even in the text here, like one of the trolls comes in and starts off with something kind of not trolly. I can still tell immediately. And then, they're always coming with different names. They have a million different accounts or whatever. It may just be intuition. Intuition combined with FE, you know. You have to have some sort of FE awareness to read people successfully. But I don't think you are right about the FI. I think what you probably do with the FI is put yourself in the other person's shoes frequently enough. And if the other person doesn't behave as you would expect emotionally, then you begin to doubt their integrity. That's what I would guess. One girl in our class has ADHD and takes Ritalin. What type might she be? She's quite wild. If she's physically quite wild, probably an ESFP or an ESTP. If she's also not good at school, ESFP. Do you make an assessment about the character of the person? I mean, the answer to that is, by and large, I tend to afford people the benefit of the doubt that they're good people who are behaving in bad ways. It takes a fair amount of malevolence to convince me otherwise. Oh my gosh, you guys, look who it is. Look who it is. It's Kang Krishna Samapagu. Kang Krishna Samapagu. How do you do, Kang Krishna Samapagu? With your poo on my shoe, I said Kang Krishna Samapagu. I want to answer Homie's question from above here about politics. Jake Hurwitz asks, what sort of diplomatic relationship would you like to have with China and Russia once you're commander-in-chief? Okay, China is a much trickier one than Russia, frankly. With Russia, I want to have, with both, I want to normalize diplomatic relations as much as possible for the purposes of trade negotiation. I want to end this foolish trade war that Trump has begun with China. But at the same time, I have very deep concerns about Hong Kong and Taiwan and China's relationship with both. And while I don't want to see American military action in the region, I would not be opposed at all necessarily to selling Taiwan and Hong Kong weapons, potentially even weapons of mass destruction. Now, if Taiwan and Hong Kong had nuclear weapons like North Korea, then probably China wouldn't fuck with them, like we don't fuck with North Korea. Just a thought. As far as Russia goes, look, as president, I will protect American interests. And I don't trust Russia at all, but I understand the need to do business with them. And so I don't intend to cause rifts between Russia and the United States. To the extent Russia does shit that I can't tolerate, or that the United States can't tolerate, well, then we'll have to respond accordingly, depending on what's going on, But obviously, I'm not going to be in Putin's pocket, and I'm not going to be in China's pocket. I oppose authoritarianism, and I see both countries as representative of authoritarianism. And so you can count on a strong U.S. in terms of its diplomacy and its interaction with China and Russia, while at the same time being non-interventionist. Okay. Let's see here. How would you put not knowing what I want all my life under what and which function stack? Well, King Christian Star of the Goo, you recently learned that what you had always wanted was a song. And now you have one. You have a song for yourself. You're also, 20 years old, 21 years old, something like that. So not knowing what you want all your life is called being forced to go to school as a child. The problem with the way things are structured now, currently in the status quo, is that we force children to go to school and we tell them what they want. And we never think to ask them what they actually want to do, what interests them, or let their lives be driven by their own autonomy and nature. Instead, we do weird things. Should I pay rent if I live by my mom? Is it morally the right thing to do if you live with your mom? She wants you to, I guess. I video chatted with KKSP's mom. Wow, that's an impressive accomplishment, Matthew. He must be really turning on the schmooze. If you all don't mind a plug for another very good channel, the young man who just outlines what is happening in plain spoken, no nonsense way, Bo of the Fifth Column, good man. Outlines what is happening? I'm curious what that means. It's a good ad there, now I'm curious. Bo of the Fifth Column. Let's see what kind of. I bet it's INTJ conspiracy stuff. Okay. In India, moms wouldn't expect rent at all. Interesting how cultural differences play out. I'm not paying any rent here. Kankan Krishna Sarmapagu wants to talk to Sri Chandran. That's what she wants to do. There you go, Kankan Krishna Sarmapagu. Now you know what you want to do. Do you know if any users can think in images? I don't, basically. I can a teeny bit. But not well. Okay. I am to Milo Ventimiglia. Unfortunately, I'm joking. Yeah, but a lot of kids want to be Fortnite streamers, and that's such trivialities. Okay, well, that's a good point, Hambone. But the thing is, I think a parent's responsibility is to find for their kid, help their kid to find things that they can do that are useful to other people. Some people can make money being Fortnite streamers. But I mean, I've recommended to my debate clients that they have their ENTP 12-year-old start a YouTube channel now, and that, you know, by the time he's 18, 19, he'll probably be making some income off of it if he just is consistent about uploading stuff. Eric, let's see. I want to know about host Eric's dating game. Who is next up to bat? I haven't even been on OkCupid. I talked to Jen again last night on the phone briefly. We're going to meet up on Thursday evening for a quick dinner. She's got a lot of responsibilities. And maybe we'll meet up again this weekend. I don't know. But I'll go back to OkCupid the next couple of days. Right now I'm feeling very avoidant. I'm not going on to Facebook. I'm not going on to OkCupid. It's sleepy week, you know. It sounds like a hassle. So, you know, it takes a lot of focus to deal with women in that way. You got to be attentive. You got to be responsive. And I'm concerned about, you know, starting shit up with somebody for a little while and then just being like, okay, and I got like 4 things going on, and what the fuck am I going to do now? I don't want to fall into that. So, I mean, I'm just sort of taking it easy here and laying off the skirt chasing a bit. You know, my initial burst out the gate, I probably had a little more enthusiasm for the activity than I ought to have. But that's such as life. Eric, you're very likely going to get money with the channel. You're on to something, and if I can persuade everyone to promote your channel, we'll get you viral soon enough. Well, thanks, Winston Small. I appreciate your vote of confidence. You know, there's starting to be some income here. At the moment, it's you know, barely enough to pay Spacey, but This is pretty goddamn useful too. So he's helping this thing become more successful. Sleepy week sounds like the male equivalent of premenstrual. Is that PMT, premenstrual therapy? Premenstrual, what does the T stand for? Shorty, we are finished. When we are finished watching this, he's handsome and creative. I'll check him out. Does he know any agave weather and songs about chicken pot pies? I don't know. I have a TE question. How can we approach therapy for types FI and SI in the backstack? That's an interesting TE question. With FI and SI in the backstack, meaning all beta quadrant. I mean, it depends where in the backstack it is. I think the thing is, it's really ENFJs are going to be the toughest, the most non-responsive to therapy. Spacey's doing fine. He's going to be back here later this afternoon, and we're going to live stream again later this afternoon. Okay, so Hambone says, I don't think public school is necessarily a problem. Your position on it is ironic given how rare and incredible it is that the entire population of children has access to it. I mean, it certainly is probably preferable to a total lack of education. But the reality also is it's rooted in a deprecated understanding of infrastructure based on a need that no longer exists. We no longer need to centralize a schoolhouse and have everybody go to that room. We can successfully individuate things more. And to the extent that we do, it's a good thing. The problem is standardization allows for certain mechanisms of credentialing and stuff like that to persist, and they're useful in some sense. But the bottom line is there's a lot better alternatives. Well, while my emotions are genuine, I sometimes need to sort of artificially generate the outward projection of the feelings to connect to the emotion. It's a mild form of theatrics in the output. Hey, Eric, when you test TI on people, I try to solve TI questions as well. However, I noticed that I was only able to solve generalizations. That's some of the problem with your mother, etc. Okay, well, then, you're not first slot TI. You're not second slot TI. You could be, okay, and you feel the need to see it instead of hearing the question. So this is usually indicative of TEFI instead of, and possibly TENI. So you might be an NTJ, you might be an SFP, probably not an ESFP if you can do some one. Is there, let's see here. Is there a certain cognitive function in play? It sounds like you got low FE. It'll be like 4-slot FE probably. Because with third slot FE, the FI is so foreign to you that you think that talking involves this expression of emotion that you read and you imitate, but it's not actually expressive of your actual emotions usually. Okay, Chantel Vanderleek. I talked to Spacey about that. He should publish one while I'm back here before I go back and get them again. I went to this Stories of Your Life weekend. It involved a lot of FI and SI. I struggled as hell. Couldn't someone find workarounds for the TI questions? No, well, you can't work around the quickness thing, the quickness aspect. Like Spacey asked this really long genealogy question to a TI Dom in a recent one. And the TI Dom, as soon as he finished saying the last word, it was just like, boom. He's keeping up. He's not having to review it all. You can't fake that. You can't learn it. It's implicit to how frequently the channel is used. Now, it is true that you could be compelled to use TI kind of more than you can other functions. Like, I can ask you a bunch of logic questions and but I think TE users take a different approach probably to solving them. The Yale VARC test is a test of learning styles that helps you understand how you learn. Language barrier might be a factor as well. Greetings from the Netherlands, by the way. Language barrier could be a factor in the genealogy ones. There's a whole bunch of, I'll put a link to some DRPs and stuff, see how people do with them. want. Okay, so I have, I used to teach critical thinking and logic and stuff. So I've got these questions that are designed to be, logic and critical thinking questions. Questions are a good way to check TI. Let's see if what this one looks like. Well, here's one, I guess. Share, like, copy link. Okay, so here we go. Thanks, None Your Biz. C.S. Joseph Firm plus Brittany Egg equals baby. That's kind of mean, None Your Biz, but I guess you paid for it. Well, asking the questions that test any function that does play a role. Not with TI, it really doesn't. See, it's spoken like an FI user, Shreddy Chandler. To learn how to better, TI is a disinterested calculus. I don't visualize proper family, but I do visualize vertical and horizontally connected lines. I do that as well. See, I don't visualize a tree. I just follow along the thing as it goes. I just go like, you know. Right. What Hambone says. That's how I remember the type of questions ready, not like how to do the genealogy, but not the answers, since the variables are many. That's why Eric asked us if we had formal training in logic. I'm an INFP and I had to acknowledge and develop TI because I had psychosis. Well, look, the thing is, when you have 8-slot TI, it's the most unconscious of all the functions for you. It's also quite effective, and you use it when you need to, but you can never quite get a hold of it and make it willful. A cop can learn to ask questions during an interrogation. A medical student may learn what questions help a diagnosis. A comedian like Hambone just knows funny and doesn't need accuracy. Okay, a cop can learn to ask questions. Correct. And a medical student can learn what questions can help a diagnosis. But the thing is the answers part. That's why it's important to be a skills test and not a knowledge test. Knowledge test you can do for SI. Skills test you can do for TI and NE. The reason I say that the person's emotional state ought to be factored in is because people can be nervous and that might make them display in different ways that might inhibit their ability to answer. And no offense, but I think it's your FI polar that makes you dismiss the relevance of that. No offense, Eric. No offense taken, it's Freddie Chandler, but I still think you're wrong. You ask any INTP whether or not they'll be able to answer the TI questions, even if they're emotionally upset, the same as if they're not. They'll agree with me that they absolutely can, and it's not an issue at all. It's like that is a separate thing. It doesn't impact. It's like saying I can't see or hear as well because my taste buds are damaged. It doesn't make any sense. Is it okay to use paper and pen for your TI problems? For some of the ones on that DRP sheet, they're not supposed to be done in your head. But like I always had to make notes when I was trying to resolve these first ones with like number 3, for example. It's got 5 people in it. I had to make a little grid to solve it. I couldn't keep it all in my head. Most of these I had to make notes on. So I don't expect people to be able to solve them without paper and pen. Except maybe the genealogy ones. There's some tough ones there. And ignore the strategies. That's for the students, obviously, in that class. But that's just part of the quiz I was doing. Yeah, those aren't for in your head. I've got other ones that are more in your head ones. Okay. TI, my son, the INTP, was told that even if his grandmother was 30 minutes wrong about the time, he must not correct her. He was astonished at this. Right. When two FI users have a disagreement, they reach an impasse with FI because no feelings can be weighed higher than the other. Right. Exactly. You can't. The problem with feelings is they're equally valid for everybody. So they're equally pointless as reasons for anything. Well, then you're probably an INFP, Eileen. You're probably not an INTP. It's not constrained by reality, it's constrained by definitions. It's a definitional calculus. That's why the realities of things like FI don't matter when you're doing a definitional calculus. You're saying these are the binary limits of these words, and these other words come into conflict with them. I mean, look, you're right, Eileen, that would be the best way to do this. If I wanted to validate the system as best I could, and there's limits to the extent to which I can, I would test everything but the 3 skills tests first, predict the results of the skills test, and see if I'm right. That's a good approach to testing the model. But when I'm doing the typings, I'm trying to type the person. I'm not trying to test the model exactly. Although every typing does test the model to some extent. If I run afoul of something that seems contradictory or whatever, then I have to rethink what I'm thinking about. So, for example, an FI were different than they are, and now I understand them differently. Okay, but you see, you're thinking about TI principles and stuff as being possessions of a person like FI emotions. They don't work that way. What you really should say is an example of a TI argument is one oughtn't commit murder because it violates some normative, some normative metric that I'm using to evaluate things morally. That's a TI argument. TI does not say don't commit murder. It says don't commit murder because, It always says that. Rick Benson, I'm not sure. He's out slaying the puss, I'm sure. So that's a good question, then, Travis. So. You're not an INTJ, I think. When you find it easy to understand why people feel something as an outside observer and can tell how various states are connected, is that FI? Yes. Yes. That's FI. And C. That's FI. Is it just because they have tertiary SE? ISFPs don't seem very competitive at all. Tertiary SE, they don't have tertiary SE. They've got tool function SE. Did you miss my question or did I miss the answer? I missed your question, Zaylen Black. Let me go look for it. What's Zaylen Black's question? I can't find it at all. Can you re-put it, Zaylen Black? I guess from observing INFPs, I realized their FI tries to dismantle TI. I find it very interesting. Yeah, I agree with that. Freddie Chandler is doing exactly that. Ken King Krishna Sarma Pagoo. Isn't that FE? No, brilliantly weird. It's mistaken to be FE. FE is reading other people's perceptions, particularly of you and each other, and reading things like social hierarchy, who's the alpha male, who's the beta male, whatever, such shit like that. That's FE. FI is concerning yourself with how another person would how you would feel if you were in the other person's shoes. That's a different kind of calculus. And so TI people will be like, okay, this is argumentationally defensible. FE people will say, this makes me look good. FI people will say, this is adequately cautious about everyone's feelings. FI thinks it's under attack a lot. It is under attack a lot. I think it's too special to be any type. How does SI differ from FE? If you read a person and act because more for your own comfort than theirs. Well, with SI-FE, you are focused on your own comfort and you're using other people to get it, basically. It sounds worse than it is. You are saying, hey, can you help me do this? And blah, 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 blah. And you are utilizing the relationships in your life to make sure that you attain a certain level of comfort rather than trying to solve the matter yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. INFP intellectualism challenges TI constraints. Right. You're trying to break it down, but I keep leveling up, like I keep metaing up on you, so it's not working. I asked when you broke into song over KKSP's entrance. Oh, well, once I see KKSP in the room, you know, I am consumed by an overwhelming desire to sing Can Krishna Song for you. So this links back to the title of the video. It's both a need, a want, and a desire to sing Can Krishna Summer Pagu when Can Krishna Summer Pagu arrives in the room. It's all three. Okay, then I use FI consciously, and I would argue that it is possible to rationally discuss FI-related matters. It is possible to rationally discuss FI-related matters, but when you do so, you are removing the interested calculus from the matter and choosing to use a disinterested calculus. I mean, respecting that everyone wants the same, basically, and should be equally safe for free. Well, I'm just talking about what FI does. I'm not trying to invalidate TI's worth. Well, but what I'm saying is when you say the TI principle is don't murder, you're not getting TI right. It's don't murder because of something. It's the warrant part that matters, the reason, the justification. FI's justification is built in. That makes me feel bad. Please stop doing it. I meant it's a different tool to point out the weakness of TI intellectualism. Well, there are limits to TI intellectualism for sure. TI is not appropriate for lots of kind of calculations, but it is appropriate and more appropriate than FI for many other kind of calculations. So the thing is, an FI DOM, especially an INFP, will want to dismantle TI primacy in both sets of circumstances. Now, you see someone upset because they had a fight. You want to comfort them, not because they're sad, but because their sadness makes you miserable, and apply that. Well, see, yeah, that's when your FI is being forced. Somebody else's sadness makes you sad. That's your FI, and it's because it's backslide. You don't have much control over that. So it's like, look, here's the thing. FI people who use FI wisely, even if something makes them sad, it won't cause them to make a poor decision. Like, oh my God, this home person is so sad. I'm going to give them $1,000. You know, something like FI polar person might abruptly do. That's really bad managing of your own FI. Yes, when you feel the feelings of other people, that's FI. If it's front stack, you can manage those realities. If it's back stack, you can't. Not very well, depending on where it is in the stack, obviously. Yeah, it is a deliberation function, just like TI. It's an intelligence function, therefore. It's like the more deliberate a person is, the more likely they are to score high on IQ tests. NITE is the sort of exception to that rule, but by and large, deliberation links to intelligence because it means they're good at the parsing part of life, and the parsing part of life is the calculation-y part of life, and that means it's seen as having a good processor. Both INFPs and INTPs score high on IQ tests, although they weren't very worth much of anything. But so do INTJs, so I kind of dismantled what I'm saying a little bit. Understanding the FI of others involves understanding the motivations behind the person's actions and what that implies. And it means understanding some of the motivations. There's a lot of motivational stuff that is the domain of FE. There is probably some implicit machine code motivational stuff that's FI. And seeing my mom fall apart is making clear what comprises sort of machine code TE. Now, my mom cannot deal with certain kinds of locks. She can't figure out how to open them or whatever anymore. Her TE is very bad at this point. She tried yesterday to put on her shirt in the car, this extra shirt she had with her, to put it on, but she was trying to put it on over her seatbelt, over her shirt. And she was having the obviously a very difficult time doing that. And I was just like, Mom, give that to me. But the point is, her TE was polar, but she used to be able to put on shirts correctly. That she always had a certain machine code level TE competencies that she began to lose. Now, Tori is also an ISFJ. And it was amusing that at 20 years old and definitely not suffering from any kind of dementia, when it came time to close the gate, she couldn't figure out how to put the lock back through the little hole because she didn't get that the pole had to be pushed in all the way for that to work. So what does that tell us? It tells us that for a polar TE person, figuring out basic shit like that is very challenging, but she'll probably know how to do it next time because her SI is functioning properly. So really, the level of TE machine code is very low. There's basic ass shit that people can't figure out how to do. Well, I do play her music in the car. She does seem to like it. She taps her foot and stuff. What's the difference between SI and FI? SI is experience as knowledge, memory as examples of things that you can make patterns out of, right? FI is weight, the significance and impact of perspective, actions, or words to other people and yourself. SI does equal bodily knowing of its needs, like knowing when I had to pee, when I get up, when I'm sleeping, I have to pee, I get up, but I just wet the bed, right? That's SI. It's bodily knowledge. Baseline principles that can be explained and consistently applied for everyone. So my description will lack. I do think TI isn't an idealistic function. It doesn't strive for high ideals, but it does strive for probably is baseline principles that can be explained and consistently applied for everyone. That's true. That's true that TI does not strive for higher ideals inherently. That TI is a tool that can be used to parse away anything, right? That the intentionality of the person using TI is different than the TI itself. There's no doubt about that. Where does the intentionality come from? That was a complicated question. It's not just FI. I certainly have plenty of FI, competency in the sense that sad things make me sad, happy things make me happy. I'm not broken, Suffering makes my heart hurt. I'm not a sociopath in any sense. But it's also the case that probably a lot of my goodness comes from FE, which is to say, anti-I. I want to be able to win arguments that pass muster argumentationally and that pass muster socially. And to do that, I've got to be, I end up becoming a moralist. I end up evolving into a moralist because the alternative is to be some sort of divisive, shock jock, kind of appeal to the hateful ones kind of person, or I don't know. So the thing is, for me, because my growth arc was primarily a healthy one, at least since my early 40s, and I'm not fundamentally a bad person, and I was raised in a loving home and everything. Then my growth arc, once I began to embark on it in earnest, led me to increasingly moralist behavior and positions. So the bottom line there is, regardless of the cause or the intention to behave well or be good, it's quite likely that a TI user like myself will ultimately be more of a strict moralist than an FI user who's more susceptible to their own interests clouding their judgment. So that's just how that is. It doesn't mean you're bad or anything. SI uses one perfection in their autobiography. They want to have positive and shiny narratives they can strip based on their strengths. That's true, but specifically true of third slot SI, Freddie Chandler, that perfection in their autobiography. I'm fine with my autobiography being kind of sloppy. Yeah, that's true, Spaceman. Freddie, you preface that with, my description will lack nuance, then proceed to inject as much nuance as possible. Yeah, well, I'm beginning to be convinced you are indeed. Weird relationship to FI and C. Same thing, sort of thing. I accidentally deleted an entire hard drive containing 6 years of recordings I made last year. I felt nothing. Or SI or weird relationship to FI. It was recovered since. I had a hard time feeling anything when they shut down my raw channel, which had years and years of 24-hour-a-day recordings, pretty much, of people talking in the raw rooms. All this archived footage. It's all lost when they killed that channel. I want to see the rest of your thing, Reasonless there. Your drums are fantastic, by the way. For those of you who remember this ongoing project here, Reasonless played drums for it, and I'm in the process of working on it out, mixing it down and stuff. And I got to change the vocals still. Are you guys sending me vocals? Joey Chabadoo? But yeah, just way beyond what I had hoped for, really. I'll play it for you guys right now. We're in its current state of being. Open with the meow, pushing in the meow, then you push the meow and meow, 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 meow. Here we go. Oh, it's playing over there. That won't do. Let me have it come out of the TV. Too much noise in the data stream. Loud enough to disrupt everybody's dreams. Temptation means mistakes are made until it seems that the body's just throwing shade. I won't be just another casualty of other people well-intentioned fools. I used to think that come tomorrow there'd be time for yesterday. Not the sort of thing that one tomorrow no one will is still too late, baby. No uncertainties implicit, just by an unexpected visit from a bunch of men all dressed in blue suits. I won't be just another casualty of other people. Well-intentioned rules. I used to think that from tomorrow there'd be time for yesterday. Sounds pretty good with, yeah, well, this sounds a lot better now because I've mixed it. I'll share with you the other link here. The new one. Oops. The new one, I use the other, the one I shared with you before, the old drum mix. This one is the new drum mix. Sounds better if you share it. I don't know what I'll do. Let's do this. Unlisted. And then get shareable link. Here we go. Here's the new mix. Okay. So, but it's gonna change vocals still. So it's like it's just in the works. Thanks, Chris D. Appreciate it. I do have some songs where I sing with a deep voice. You know, it's kind of one of the advantages of having Spacey sing too.